Ethan Carter wiped his hands on a slightly oily rag and glanced at the massive view screen in the space station's engineering bay. Beyond the transparent shield, stars shimmered like scattered diamonds across the blackness. He had been working late making minor adjustments to the station's energy conduits. It was supposed to be a routine day, but nothing about this week had felt routine. "Carter, the meeting starts in 10 minutes, a voice called from the corridor. It belonged to Mara, his fellow engineer. She had a way of being efficient and patient at the same time. A rare combination. Ethan sighed. He'd rather stay here tinkering with circuits than attend another diplomatic briefing with alien dignitaries. The station was hosting representatives from the Zyphorian Alliance, and their reputation for strict protocol made him nervous. Humans weren't exactly their favorite species. Pulling his jacket over his jumpsuit, Ethan headed to the council chamber, a wide room filled with hovering lights and floating holographic displays. Representatives from various alien species sat around a long, triangular table. At the head of the table stood General Lyra, commanding attention without even trying. Lyra was taller than any human by almost a foot, with iridescent skin that shifted colors in the room's light. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, seemed to flicker between shades of blue and violet. Her presence alone was enough to silence a room. Ethan had seen military leaders before, but something about her made even the most confident humans feel small. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward, trying to look professional. His heart pounded in his chest. He had to report on the station's energy grid updates, nothing more, nothing complicated, nothing personal. "Good evening, General Lyra," Ethan began, bowing slightly. "I've completed the maintenance on the primary conduits. All systems are operational." Lyra's gaze moved to him. She tilted her head slightly, studying him in a way that made him shift uncomfortably on his feet. Her eyes were calm, unreadable, but there was curiosity there too. Ethan cleared his throat and added, "I also, noticed that the energy fluctuations in Sector 7 were manageable, efficient even." He meant to compliment the work of the station's automated systems, but the words came out awkwardly. He paused, hoping she wouldn't notice. Instead, Lyra's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. That tiny gesture made Ethan's stomach do a flip. Then, trying to lighten the mood, Ethan made the mistake that would haunt him for days. "Also, your strategy during the last simulation was really cute." The room froze. Humans and aliens alike turned to stare. Ethan's face burned. He hadn't meant to flirt, not really. Cute had just slipped out. Lyra's expression didn't change much at first. Then slowly she leaned back and studied him with an intensity that made his palms sweat. "Cute?" she asked, her voice smooth, almost melodic, yet carrying the weight of command. Ethan swallowed hard. I mean, impressive, efficient, tactical." Lyra raised an eyebrow. It was impossible to tell if she was annoyed, amused, or intrigued. She said almost thoughtfully. "Interesting choice of words, human." The rest of the council seemed unsure whether to laugh, gasp, or ignore the situation entirely. Ethan mumbled a quick apology and tried to move on with his report, but it was clear that Lyra's attention had shifted. During the briefing, every time Ethan glanced at the table, he caught her eyes on him. Not in a threatening way, not in a dismissive way, but in a way that made him feel exposed, like she could see every thought racing through his mind. He had never experienced anything like it. After the meeting ended, Ethan lingered in the chamber, trying to act natural as other delegates filed out. Lyra stayed seated, her gaze following him until he reached the doorway. He felt a strange mix of fear and fascination. "Carter," she said softly, just as he was about to leave. He froze. "Yes, General?" His voice cracked slightly. Lyra tilted her head. "Do not misunderstand my attention, human. I am studying your behavior. Your species is unpredictable." Ethan blinked. "Unpredictable?" "Yes, and fascinating," Lyra replied. Then, almost as if testing him, she added, "I will be observing you more closely." Ethan nodded quickly, though he had no idea what observing would entail. He left the chamber feeling both relieved and completely flustered. Back in the engineer's lounge, Mara raised an eyebrow. "You okay? You look like you just met a lion." Yeah, fine," Ethan said, though he wasn't fine. He replayed the word cute over and over in his head. How had he been so careless? Mara shook her head. "Humans, always so emotional, Just try not to get eaten alive by interstellar generals, okay? Ethan forced a weak laugh. Right, noted. The next few days were unusual. Everywhere he went, he could feel Lyra's eyes on him. In the cafeteria, she would stand at a distance, observing quietly. During training simulations, she would watch him navigate obstacles, making subtle notes. Ethan's colleagues noticed it too. Some teased him lightly. Others whispered theories about why the general seemed so interested in a low-ranking human engineer. Ethan wasn't sure how to feel. Part of him was flattered. Humans didn't usually get such attention from high-ranking alien officers. But another part of him was terrified. What did she want? Was he in trouble? Was this a test? Or something else entirely? One evening, as Ethan was adjusting a series of energy regulators in a hallway, he heard a calm voice behind him. Human Carter. He jumped and turned to see Lyra standing there, her figure framed by the soft glow of the station lights. She didn't look angry. She didn't even look amused, just curious. Yes, General? Ethan asked, trying to keep his tone steady. Lyra tilted her head again, studying his work. Your methods differ from the standard protocols. Efficient, unexpected. Ethan felt a strange surge of pride. Thank you, General. I just try to solve problems as they appear. She nodded slightly. That is interesting. Most humans rely on instructions. You rely on instinct. Her words made him pause. No one had ever described him that way. It was true. Humans were often underestimated by other species because we were flexible, creative, willing to improvise. Lyra seemed to recognize that in him. Your species is curious, she said finally, stepping closer. Ethan's heart raced. I will continue my observation tomorrow. Be prepared for unexpected interactions. Ethan nodded, unsure whether he had been complimented or warned. Yes, General, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. As she walked away, he watched her disappear into the corridor, her iridescent skin catching the lights in dazzling patterns. He couldn't help but wonder what she was thinking. For the first time in his life, Ethan Carter realized that humans, small, fragile, and seemingly insignificant, could capture the attention of the most powerful alien officers in the galaxy. And somehow, that scared him and thrilled him at the same time. That night, lying in his bunk, he stared at the ceiling of the station and thought about Lyra. The word cute kept echoing in his mind. He couldn't believe he had actually said it, yet somehow it had started something unpredictable, something fascinating. And somehow he knew that his life aboard the space station was about to change in ways he could never imagine. The next morning, Ethan Carter walked into the station's main corridor feeling unusually nervous. After yesterday's awkward encounter with General Lyra, he couldn't stop replaying every moment in his mind. He tried to focus on the work ahead, but no matter how hard he concentrated, he could sense that someone was watching him. It didn't take long for him to realize it was Lyra. She stood near the observation deck, arms crossed behind her back, eyes locked on him. Ethan froze mid-step, unsure whether to greet her or pretend he hadn't noticed. He did what came naturally. He waved awkwardly and muttered, "Good morning, General." Lyra tilted her head slightly and let out a low hum, a sound that humans couldn't fully understand. But Ethan interpreted it as approval, maybe not. He had no idea. Throughout the morning, Ethan noticed a pattern. Lyra seemed to appear wherever he was, silently observing him. When he was checking the oxygen regulators in Sector 12, she was at the other end of the hall. When he ran a diagnostic on the water recycling units, she appeared on the balcony above, her gaze focused yet calm. His human mind struggled to understand why she was following him so closely. At first he thought it might be intimidation, a reminder that humans were under her command. But the more he watched her, the more he realized it wasn't fear she wanted to instill. It was something else. Curiosity? Fascination? During a break in the engineering bay, Mara noticed Ethan's distracted state. You okay? You keep looking around like someone's about to pounce on you. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. It's Lyra, she's everywhere. Watching me, Mara smirked. You mean the alien general you called cute? Ethan groaned. Yes, I didn't mean it. It just slipped out, and now I think she's obsessed. Mara chuckled. Well, congratulations. You've officially captured the attention of one of the most powerful officers in the galaxy. Most humans would consider that a nightmare. You might consider it, A compliment? Ethan was too nervous to laugh properly. He felt both honored and terrified. A compliment? She's a general. She could crush me without even trying. Mara shook her head. Maybe, or maybe she's intrigued by humans. We are unpredictable after all. Ethan paused at that thought. Humans were unpredictable. They could improvise, adapt, and find solutions where other species saw problems. Maybe that was why Lyra's gaze followed him. Later that day, Ethan was assigned to run a simulation of the station's emergency protocols. The simulation required navigating zero-gravity corridors while correcting power disruptions and rerouting life support systems. He was confident in his abilities. This was routine work for him, but today he felt the weight of Lyra's eyes on him. He entered the simulation chamber, adjusting the straps of his harness. His heart pounded. He could hear her voice behind him before he even turned around. "Human Carter," she said. "Proceed." Her tone was calm. But there was something in it that made Ethan more nervous than the zero-gravity chambers ever could. Ethan moved quickly through the simulation, fixing each problem as it appeared. He had to think fast, anticipate issues, and remain flexible. Lyra didn't interfere. She only observed, occasionally jotting notes on a holographic tablet that floated beside her. At first, Ethan assumed she was assessing his technical skill. But as the simulation progressed, he began to notice subtle gestures. Lyra leaning slightly when he made a creative fix, tilting her head when he made a mistake, a faint hum that seemed almost like approval. It was unnerving, and strangely flattering. By the end of the simulation, Ethan had completed every task successfully. He expected a simple nod of acknowledgement from Lyra, but instead she approached him. Her iridescent skin shimmered in the chamber lights and her eyes seemed to study him in a way that made his stomach twist. "Your approach is unusual for a human," Lyra said. "You rely on intuition, improvisation, and adaptability. Most of your species would follow instructions blindly. You do not." Ethan felt a swell of pride. "Thank you, General. I just try to solve problems as they come." She tilted her head again, her expression unreadable. "Fascinating. Your species may be weaker physically, but your unpredictability is remarkable. It may explain why humans survive where others fail." Ethan blinked, processing her words. Remarkable? Survive where others fail? These were not insults or warnings. They were admiration, and it made his chest tighten. For the next several days, this pattern continued. Ethan worked on repairs, diagnostics, and simulations, while Lyra silently observed, always at a distance that made him aware of her presence but never intrusive. His colleagues began to notice, whispering about the unusual relationship forming between human and alien general. Some speculated it was political strategy. Others thought it might be personal. Ethan didn't know what to think. He tried to focus on his work, but he couldn't ignore the way Lyra's gaze followed him, studying him with interest and something else. One afternoon, as Ethan adjusted the station's communication array, Lyra appeared beside him. She didn't speak at first. She simply observed his hands, noting his movements and the speed at which he worked. "You move differently from other humans," she said finally. "Purposeful, efficient, careful, yet quick. There is something in your approach that is unique." Ethan laughed nervously. "I just try to do my job." She tilted her head. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you approach problems in a way your species does not fully understand. Your unpredictability is intriguing." Ethan felt heat rise to his cheeks. He wasn't used to being praised by anyone, let alone an alien general whose species had conquered dozens of star systems. Thank you," he said, fumbling slightly with the tools in his hands. Lyra's eyes softened just a fraction, enough to catch his attention. "Your species has potential. More than most realize. Perhaps that potential will be tested soon." Ethan frowned. "Tested? How?" Lyra didn't answer directly. Instead, she stepped back, folded her arms, and let her gaze drift over him one last time before leaving the chamber. Her movements were graceful, deliberate, and commanding, leaving Ethan feeling both unsettled and strangely exhilarated. He paused for a moment, staring after her. Mara appeared beside him, raising an eyebrow. "Do you ever get used to her staring at you?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "I don't think I want to." Mara smirked. "Well, you've got her attention. That's something, right?" Ethan nodded, though his mind was full of questions. Why him? Why humans? Why now? Over the next few days, Ethan began to notice small changes in Lyra's behavior. She would mimic subtle human gestures, tilting her head the way he did when concentrating, pacing with measured steps during the simulation, even using small expressions that made her seem more approachable. At first, he thought it was coincidence, but the more he noticed it, the more he realized she was adapting, studying, and perhaps learning from him. It was both fascinating and nerve-wracking. He had never interacted with an alien like this before. She wasn't just watching, she was learning, analyzing, and reacting. One evening, as Ethan left the engineering bay, he saw her again, standing near the observation deck. This time she didn't speak. She simply tilted her head, watching him with those shifting eyes. Ethan felt a strange thrill. Maybe she isn't just a general, he thought. Maybe she's curious about humans, about me. That night, as he lay in his bunk, Ethan stared at the ceiling of the station. Stars twinkled through the small viewport above him. He couldn't stop thinking about Lyra, her gaze, her words, the way she seemed genuinely intrigued by his species. For the first time in his life, Ethan realized that humans, small and often underestimated, could capture the attention of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And that attention, unpredictable and intense, was both frightening and thrilling. He smiled despite himself. This is going to be interesting, he thought. And deep down he knew that the staring game was only just beginning. 2 days later, Ethan Carter received an unexpected message from the station's command center. His stomach sank when he read it. He was to report immediately to General Lyra for a mission briefing. He had expected more routine assignments, maintenance checks, or energy diagnostics. But a mission? And one that required Lyra's direct involvement? His mind raced with questions. When he entered the command center, Lyra was already there, standing in front of a holographic map of a distant, uncharted planet. Her presence filled the room as always, her iridescent skin shimmering under the lights. She didn't smile, didn't speak, but her gaze fixed on him with the same intensity he had come to recognize, and secretly fear. "Human Carter," she said calmly, "you will accompany me on this mission." Ethan blinked. Me? Why?" Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. "Because your skills, creativity, and adaptability are required. This mission will test all of your abilities. You are necessary." Ethan felt a mix of pride and panic. He had never been on a field mission before, let alone one that involved a high-ranking alien general. "I'll do my best," he stammered. Lyra inclined her head. "See that you do." They departed the station aboard a sleek silver shuttle designed for rapid planetary travel. Ethan strapped himself into the co-pilot seat, still nervous about sitting so close to the general. For the first few minutes, the shuttle was silent except for the hum of the engines. Ethan stole glances at Lyra. She piloted with precision, her hands moving fluidly over the controls, eyes focused but alert. He could see the faint glow of her skin as she adjusted to the shuttle's lights. She looked formidable. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked, trying to sound confident. Lyra's eyes flicked to him, blue shifting to violet. "An uncharted planet in the Relara system. A critical communication relay has malfunctioned. If we do not repair it before the approaching solar storm, the station and several nearby colonies will lose contact." Ethan nodded. "Understood, and why do I need to be there?" She studied him silently for a moment. "Because this task requires flexibility, intuition, and quick thinking. Your species excels in these areas." Ethan felt his chest tighten. He had worked hard his whole life, learning to solve problems under pressure. But hearing it acknowledged by someone like Lyra, it made him feel seen. When the shuttle landed on the rocky surface of the planet, Ethan felt the gravity shift slightly, weaker than Earth's, but stronger than the station's artificial gravity. The landscape was alien. Jagged cliffs, swirling dust storms, and glowing vegetation that pulsed faintly under the dim sunlight. Lyra stepped out first, her movements graceful and confident. Ethan followed, adjusting to the uneven terrain. The air was breathable but filled with a faint metallic scent. "We must move quickly," Lyra said. "The storm will arrive in less than 4 hours. The relay is located in the canyon ahead." As they navigated the rough terrain, Ethan noticed Lyra observing him closely. Not in a threatening way, but with curiosity, analyzing how he adapted to the environment, how he handled obstacles. He tried to focus on the mission, but the awareness of her attention made his heart race. They reached a narrow canyon where the communication relay was partially buried in the rocky ground. Sparks flew from exposed circuits, and the storm's winds began to stir the dust around them. "This is bad," Ethan muttered, scanning the system. "The main power conduit is completely fried. If we don't reroute the energy flow, the relay will fail." Lyra crouched beside him, examining the circuits with her multi-fingered hands. "We will adapt. We will overcome." Ethan nodded, inspired by her confidence. "Okay, let's do it." They worked together, Ethan improvising solutions while Lyra provided tactical guidance. He rerouted energy through secondary channels, while Lyra stabilized the main systems and shielded the fragile components from the storm's debris. At one point, a rock slide threatened to bury the relay. Without thinking, Ethan pushed a panel aside, redirecting the falling debris while Lyra extended a protective energy shield. They both froze for a moment, adrenaline surging, before realizing they had avoided disaster. "Your instincts are remarkable," Lyra said quietly, almost to herself. "Humans are more capable than I expected." Ethan felt a warmth spread through him. Praise from Lyra was rare and valuable. "Thanks, General. I just do what I can." Hours passed. The storm intensified, winds howling and debris flying. But their teamwork improved with every obstacle. Ethan's quick thinking complemented Lyra's strategic planning perfectly. He found solutions in moments of crisis, while Lyra anticipated potential dangers before they arose. During a brief pause, Ethan caught his breath and looked at Lyra. Her skin glimmered in the storm's dim light, and her eyes, violet now instead of blue, locked onto his. For a moment, the chaos around them faded. "You are fascinating," she said softly. "Your courage, your adaptability, your ability to remain calm. It is uncommon." Ethan's cheeks flushed. I just try to do my best," he admitted. Lyra tilted her head, a gesture that made her appear both alien and oddly approachable. "It is enough." The storm began to subside as they completed the final repairs. Ethan rerouted the last conduit, and Lyra sealed the system with a protective shield. The relay hummed to life, sending signals back to the station and nearby colonies. "We did it," Ethan said, relief washing over him. Lyra studied the functioning relay for a moment, then turned her attention to him. "Yes, together." Her words weren't loud, but they carried weight. Ethan realized that their partnership had gone beyond mere necessity. They had learned to trust and rely on each other. On the journey back to the shuttle, Ethan noticed small things he hadn't before. Lyra observed not just his actions, but his thought process. She seemed genuinely interested in how humans solved problems under pressure, and while her presence was still intimidating, it also felt reassuring. Back aboard the shuttle, the silence was different this time. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't tense. It was shared understanding. "You handled yourself well," Lyra said finally, her voice calm but approving. "Many humans would have failed. Others would have panicked. You adapted. You survived. You succeeded." Ethan smiled, a mix of pride and relief. "Thanks, General. I couldn't have done it without you." She inclined her head. "Perhaps. But your contribution was vital. Do not underestimate yourself." The shuttle returned to the station under the quiet glow of the galaxy's distant stars. Ethan felt exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced danger, solved impossible problems, and survived under conditions that would have overwhelmed many experienced officers. And through it all, Lyra had observed him, acknowledged his skill, and even praised him. For the first time, Ethan understood that her interest in him wasn't just curiosity, it was respect. And respect from someone like Lyra was rare. That evening, as he showered and prepared for sleep, Ethan's thoughts drifted back to the mission. He replayed every moment, every decision, every risk he had taken, and he realized something surprising. He had enjoyed the challenge. He had thrived under pressure, and he had felt connected in a strange way to the alien general who had observed his every move. Maybe humans aren't just unpredictable, he thought. Maybe we're remarkable. And somehow, deep down, he knew that the mission had changed more than just the communication relay. It had changed him. Lyra had seen him at his best. And he had seen her not just as a commanding officer, but as a strategist, a thinker, and someone who respected human ingenuity. As he drifted off to sleep that night, Ethan Carter realized that the next time they faced danger together, he would be ready. Not just for the mission, but for whatever else came between him and General Lyra. And for the first time, he didn't feel nervous about her watching him. He felt capable. Back on the station, life seemed to return to a cautious normal. The communication relay mission had been a success, but Ethan Carter's life had changed in subtle ways he couldn't ignore. Every glance from General Lyra carried a weight he still didn't fully understand. He walked through the corridors, trying to focus on maintenance schedules and diagnostic reports, but whispers followed him. Some were curious, some teasing, and some downright skeptical. The humans on the station whispered among themselves, "Have you seen how the General looks at Carter?" And the aliens weren't any different. Officers and crew members alike had noticed how Lyra's attention lingered. She didn't intervene in his work, didn't criticize unnecessarily, but she watched, observed, studied. Ethan tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. Even simple tasks felt like a performance, though he knew he had done nothing wrong. One afternoon, a private message summoned him to the command deck. His stomach churned. What now, he wondered? Another mission? Or a reprimand? When he entered, Lyra was already there, her arms crossed behind her back, eyes observing him as always. But this time there was something softer in her gaze, almost patient. "You performed exceptionally during the relay mission," she said. "Your actions saved not only the relay but the station's communications with several colonies. That is notable." Ethan's chest swelled. Praise from Lyra was rare, precise, and meaningful. "Thank you, General. I just did my part." She tilted her head. "Your part was significant. That is why I am requesting your assistance in a different matter." Ethan nodded, bracing himself. "Of course. Anything I can do." Lyra gestured to the holographic display. "There have been reports of rogue factions attempting to sabotage diplomatic relations with the human colonies. Your understanding of human behavior may help in mediating these tensions." Ethan's eyes widened. "Diplomacy, me? Your species' perspective is valuable. You think differently. You adapt. You understand human subtleties in ways others may overlook. That insight will be necessary." Ethan took a deep breath. Adapt, observe, think. He had spent most of his life solving technical problems. Now he would navigate the complex world of interspecies diplomacy. The pressure was immense, but somehow he felt capable. The days that followed were challenging. Ethan worked closely with Lyra, preparing reports and strategies for delicate negotiations. Their interactions became more personal, though always professional. Lyra continued her silent observation, noting his responses to questions, his gestures, even the tone of his voice. At first, Ethan felt self-conscious. But slowly he began to appreciate the subtlety of her attention. She wasn't judging. She was learning, and she respected what she saw. During a brief break, Ethan and Lyra walked through the station's observation deck, overlooking the swirling colors of a nearby nebula. The lights reflected off Lyra's iridescent skin, creating a soft glow. "You are different from most humans I have encountered," Lyra said quietly. Ethan glanced at her, unsure how to respond. "Different? How?" "Focused, resourceful, courageous, unpredictable, yet reliable. You do not rely solely on procedure. You rely on instinct, and it serves you well." Ethan felt heat rise to his cheeks. I just try to do what's necessary." Lyra's eyes softened just slightly. "And that is enough. More than enough." The next challenge arrived faster than either of them expected. A group of alien diplomats arrived at the station, tense and wary. Their mission? Negotiate trade agreements and security protocols. But hidden agendas quickly became apparent. The conversations teetered on conflict, and Ethan's human perspective became unexpectedly critical. Lyra observed him closely, giving him space to intervene when necessary. Ethan found himself explaining human priorities, anticipating questions and proposing solutions that neither the aliens nor the humans had considered. His ideas bridged cultural gaps, and his calm approach helped diffuse several tense moments. At one point, a particularly difficult delegate leaned forward, voice sharp and questioning. "Human Carter, why should we trust your people with these protocols?" Ethan met their gaze steadily. "Because humans learn, adapt, and survive. We make mistakes, yes, but we also find solutions that no one else expects. Trust is earned, and humans have proven capable of earning it." The delegate blinked, clearly surprised. Lyra's gaze lingered on Ethan, a flicker of approval in her eyes. Ethan realized that she wasn't just observing anymore, she was impressed. By the end of the day, the negotiations had reached a tentative agreement. Aliens and humans found common ground, and the rogue faction's influence was minimized. Ethan felt exhausted but exhilarated. Later, in the quiet of the command deck, Lyra approached him. "You performed admirably," she said. "Not only technically, but strategically and socially." Ethan smiled weakly. "Thank you, General. I couldn't have done it without your guidance." She tilted her head. "Perhaps, but your insight and courage were invaluable. You think differently. That is why I pay attention to you." The words settled over him like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time, Ethan understood the full meaning of her observation. This was not mere curiosity or intimidation. Lyra genuinely respected him. Over the next few days, their connection deepened. Lyra began involving him in more briefings, asking for his input in matters of strategy and diplomacy. Other officers noticed, some expressing surprise, others admiration. Ethan realized that he had moved from being a low-ranking engineer to someone whose ideas were valued by one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Despite the attention, Ethan remained humble. He knew he had lucked into these opportunities, but he also understood that his abilities, creativity, adaptability, courage, had earned him respect. And Lyra's respect was the rarest and most rewarding of all. One evening, Ethan found himself walking with Lyra again through the observation deck. Silence stretched comfortably between them, broken only by the soft hum of the station and the distant twinkle of stars. "You understand humans well," Lyra said suddenly. Ethan blinked. "I think I do." "Why?" "Because you see not only what humans are, but what they can become. You notice potential." Ethan paused. I try to. I guess I just notice things," Lyra nodded. "And that is valuable. Your species is underestimated by many, yet you have qualities that make you remarkable." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. "Remarkable?" he repeated, almost in disbelief. Lyra's eyes softened, shimmering in the nebula's light. "Yes, and you demonstrate them." Ethan realized that the connection between them had grown stronger than he had expected. There was mutual understanding, respect, and perhaps something more. But for now, it was enough to know that Lyra valued him, not just as a human, but as someone unique in her eyes. As he returned to his quarters that night, Ethan thought about the past days, the mission, the negotiations, the quiet moments with Lyra. Everything had changed. He had faced danger, solved impossible problems, and earned the respect of someone he had once accidentally called cute. And he knew that this was only the beginning. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and resilient. And he, Ethan Carter, had begun to understand that his species' true power lay not just in technology or strength, but in courage, creativity, and the ability to connect across worlds, even with an alien general who had once seemed untouchable. For the first time, he felt ready for whatever came next. Ethan Carter woke to the blaring alarms of the space station. Red lights flashed across the corridors, accompanied by a low, vibrating hum that shook the floor beneath his feet. His heart raced. Something was very wrong. A station-wide alert announced the situation. A rogue alien faction had infiltrated the outer docking bays, attempting sabotage. Communication arrays were at risk, power grids fluctuated, and the station's stability was threatened. Ethan's mind raced. He had faced danger on a distant planet, but this was different. This was immediate, urgent, and threatening the lives of thousands of crew members. He grabbed his toolkit and sprinted toward the command deck, weaving through panicked staff and flashing lights. As he rounded a corner, Lyra appeared, moving with her usual precision and calm despite the chaos. "Carter," she called, her voice calm yet commanding. "We must stabilize the station. Follow my lead." Ethan nodded, adrenaline sharpening his focus. Understood. The first task was to restore the power grid. The outer bays had been damaged by sabotage, causing major fluctuations in the station's energy flow. Ethan and Lyra split the tasks. He moved to the main control panel, analyzing the circuits and rerouting energy flow, while Lyra coordinated security measures and guided other officers. As Ethan worked, Lyra's eyes occasionally flicked toward him, observing his every move. Not in a controlling way, but with trust. She had seen his skill on the mission, and now she relied on it. "Carter," she said over the comm link, "the primary conduit is unstable. You must stabilize it before the secondary systems overload." Ethan's fingers flew over the controls. He rerouted power manually, creating a temporary bypass that would prevent a catastrophic overload. Sparks flew and the control panel hummed dangerously, but he stayed focused. Lyra's voice guided him, calm and precise. "Good. Now reroute the energy to the auxiliary relays. Careful with the pressure valves. They are sensitive." He worked quickly, using every ounce of his technical knowledge and creativity. Seconds stretched into minutes as the station teetered on the edge of disaster. Finally, with a loud click, the system stabilized. Power flowed steadily, and the hum of the station returned to normal. Ethan exhaled, sweat dripping from his forehead. "Impressive," Lyra said quietly, appearing beside him. Her eyes shifted in color, a subtle display of approval. "Your adaptability and quick thinking saved the grid." Ethan felt a surge of pride. "Thank you, General. But we still have other areas to secure." Together they moved to the outer docking bays where the rogue faction had left behind sabotage devices. Lyra's tactical expertise and Ethan's ingenuity made a perfect team. She anticipated threats and neutralized hazards, while he disarmed complex devices and improvised solutions for unstable equipment. At one point, a section of the docking bay began to collapse. Ethan calculated quickly and redirected the station's magnetic stabilizers to support the structure. Lyra extended a protective shield just in time, preventing debris from injuring them. "You are remarkable," Lyra said softly, almost to herself. "Your species' instincts are valuable." Ethan flushed, glancing at her. Just focus on the problem in front of me." Lyra's eyes softened. "Focus, yes. And yet your focus, combined with creativity, has saved many lives today." The rogue faction was finally neutralized after hours of intense work. Security teams cleared the docking bays, and Ethan and Lyra returned to the command deck, exhausted but victorious. As they surveyed the station, Ethan noticed the subtle changes in the crew. Humans and aliens alike looked to him with respect, a mixture of awe and admiration. They had witnessed his ingenuity and courage, and most importantly, Lyra's gaze lingered on him, acknowledging not just his skill but his potential. "Carter," she said quietly, once the immediate crisis had passed, "your actions today demonstrate what your species can achieve, not through sheer strength but through adaptability, intelligence, and courage." Ethan swallowed, humbled by her words. "I didn't do it alone, General. You guided us through it." Lyra tilted her head. "Perhaps. But your decisions, your creativity, your humanity have made the difference. Others would have failed." The station began to recover from the chaos. Engineers repaired damaged systems, security personnel reviewed protocols, and life returned to a cautious normal. Yet for Ethan, nothing felt the same. He had faced extreme danger and he had survived. He had proven, not just to himself but to one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, that humans were remarkable. In the quiet of the command deck, Ethan finally allowed himself to breathe. Lyra stood beside him, her presence calm and reassuring. "You understand now," she said, her tone softening. "Why I observe your species. Humans are underestimated, yet capable of extraordinary actions." "You exemplify that?" Ethan nodded. "I think I understand. And thank you for seeing that." Lyra's eyes met his, and for a brief moment the professional distance between them seemed to soften. Her gaze wasn't just analytical. It carried respect, acknowledgement, and something he couldn't quite name, yet recognized. "Human Carter," she said finally, a subtle smile forming on her lips. "You have earned not only my respect but my attention. That is," where Ethan's cheeks flushed, but he nodded. I'm honored, General, truly." The following days were quieter. The station continued its operations and Ethan returned to his engineering duties. Yet the bond between him and Lyra had changed. There was mutual understanding now, a shared knowledge of capability and trust forged in extreme circumstances. Lyra continued to observe him, not in a controlling way, but as a partner who recognized his potential. She occasionally offered advice, asked for his input, or simply watched him work, learning and appreciating the ingenuity of the human mind. Ethan, in turn, had grown more confident. He knew his abilities mattered. His species mattered. and he understood that humans, often underestimated, could shine brightly even among the most advanced and powerful alien civilizations. One evening, as he walked through the observation deck, he noticed Lyra standing by the viewport, gazing at the distant stars. He approached her cautiously, not wanting to intrude. "You have done well," she said without turning. "Today your actions have inspired not only me but many others on this station." Ethan smiled faintly. "I just try to do my best." Lyra finally turned to him, her eyes reflecting the nebula beyond. "And your best is extraordinary." For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken understanding. Ethan realized that their connection went beyond words. Respect, trust, and admiration had formed a bond neither could ignore. As the stars shimmered outside the viewport, Ethan felt a sense of pride and belonging he had never known. He was human, small in the vast galaxy, yet capable of extraordinary things. And for the first time he felt that humans could truly shine, when they combined courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Lyra's gaze lingered on him, a subtle reminder that humans were not only capable, but remarkable. Ethan returned the look, understanding without words that their partnership, born from observation, challenge, and shared danger, was something unique. And as he left the observation deck that night, he knew that his journey was far from over. New challenges would come, dangers he could not yet imagine. But he was ready, because humans could adapt, overcome, and thrive. And Ethan Carter had proven that even a single human could make a difference in the vast, unpredictable galaxy. The General's silent admiration had shown him something he had always suspected. Courage, ingenuity, and determination could earn respect across species, even in the eyes of one of the most powerful beings he had ever met. And somewhere in the stars above, he felt a quiet thrill, knowing that his story and the story of humanity was only beginning.